After choosing empowerment over dread, I began searching for meaningful and effective solutions to put into practice in my own life. Progressive Hedonist is a podcast to share the ways we can take on climate change through food and joy. On days when this seems completely impossible, this podcast is a reminder that each of us can make an impact. I'm Dana Cowan. Join me in conversations with thought leaders like Alice Waters, Andrew Zimmern, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, and more. We can learn together what is possible. You can listen anywhere podcasts can be found and join the conversation on Instagram at progressive_hedonist.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Doreen Winkler. We'll talk to Doreen about orange wine, the Orange Glou Fair, and a lot more. We'll taste an orange wine pick that Doreen pulled out for our weekly wine sip from Czechia. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Doreen Winkler got her start as a sommelier at the young age of 22 in Hamburg, Germany. After a few more gigs in Hamburg, she bopped over to the U.S., spent some time in Australia, and eventually settled in New York City. 2013 was a turning point and a focus towards natural wines for Doreen. She helped to develop natural focus wine lists at Aska, Aldia, Prime Meats, and Cell Rose, to name a few. Her love of natural wine has led her to start Orange Glou, an orange wine subscription club. She then opened Orange Glou, the only brick-and-mortar orange wine store in the world on the Lower East Side, and founded the Orange Glou Wine Fair in New York, coming this November 3rd, dedicated exclusively to orange wine. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Doreen.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Doreen, I'm going to say Glou, Glow, and Glou, so just keep me on the straight path, all right?
You're
Glou.
not the only one.
All right, so we're talking to Doreen in person at her Orange Glou wine shop on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. A very cool, tight little shop, I must say. All right, let's get right into it. Doreen, you grew up in Germany, right?
Yes.
Where?
I grew up actually on the eastern side of Germany, but I left when I was 16.
Okay. What do you mean you left at 16?
For opportunities.
Left like the family?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you leave school?
I finished school, and then usually after we're done finished school, then we go to do an apprenticeship, and that's like another school and work at the same time. And unfortunately, in the area that I was born, it was not possible to
So
to
you
get.
left to do a more meaningful apprenticeship?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you grow up around wine? I mean, family? I mean, was
Not
wine?
at all.
Okay. All right. So two things. What was the apprenticeship? And that would lead into an early career into hospitality in your very early 20s.
Right.
So tell me what led to, this hospitality thing, which you really never turned back since.
Right. I really feel like I always wanted to explore the world and have freedom, and definitely knew that I wanted to do something with my life in some way that is exciting. And so I thought the hospitality sector, is an exciting sector. So that's what I pursued in my apprenticeship. And then as a German, you actually have to always have a plan and you have to have it all figured out.
Right.
But, you're kind of done with this apprenticeship, and you're like, the options are kind of very limited. And I was like, these options of like just becoming a maitre d' or becoming a restaurant manager, maybe a banquet manager was interesting, but like, or a server or bartender, it was just like, I was like on hold in that moment. So I actually decided to take a break and went and was like going on a cruise ship, actually working there. And there we went to Monaco, Monte Carlo,
pretty cool
Formula One.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, the guests on a Formula One cruise that is parked right there, and we were able to see it. Like they're having a little bit of money to spend, and all night long,
and wine and partying.
All night long there was Krug, Cristal, fancy Bordeaux. I just like saw all these gold labels, and to be honest, I was so impressed.
Was that the point where you really discovered, noticed? I mean, did you know about Krug at all much before that?
No, and I didn't know about the sommelier.
So that was a hospitality thing where wine was flowing. That got you curious about wine. Is it fair to say that was a...
Yes, immediately was like, oh, maybe there is this exactly what I was looking for, an expert position, that I'm not like just doing whatever, something that's a little bit more meaningful and where you can like educate yourself constantly. I feel like the whole education, it's like I've never stopped, and it's exciting to me.
You should never stop.
Yeah.
You're always, I mean, every time I sit down with people like you, it's a new education to me. So you do that. Tell me if my understanding and research is correct. You eventually get to the States, you go to Australia, you settle here. Just give me that quick line to here today.
There's a very long time in between that.
Okay. Don't spend a lot of time on that, but get me that line connected.
I immediately knew that this is the job that I want and how to pursue it. So I signed up for courses at the German Wine Institute to get started, and looked at like how to get there. And the best way is actually to work in a restaurant that has like a large list. So I actually moved to Switzerland. We had 1,600 wines on the list. You start as a server, but if you show a lot of interest and if you help in your free time to organize the cellar, if you do something and you do for yourself is actually not work, it's just so much fun to move those bottles, then eventually, you get supported by the people around you.
So Switzerland's famous for their own wines, which are terrific and never really get out. I'm sure you know well about that. This restaurant had a lot of wine from all over.
From all over the world.
French, European. Okay. So what happens after that?
After 2 years in Switzerland, I decided to move to Hamburg.
Okay.
And I was like, immediately like, how do I get assistant sommelier position? I want to go somewhere. I applied Michelin star, and eventually actually ended up in this really cool restaurant and hotel. It's called the Atlantic. And became an assistant sommelier there, and eventually became their wine buyer in this restaurant. That was
the first real wine job.
Yeah, 22.
Did it fulfill all your curiosities and interests?
It was a really good start. I had to purchase some wines from the hotel cellar, so it wasn't 100% the way I would have imagined, but it was a really good start. And they really only gave me the shot because I was so excited about wine. And I was not talking down to the people that are coming to the restaurant. I was just smiling when I was like, oh my God, you need to really try this. This works so well with this dish. And
it's funny.
I don't know, the enthusiasm really brought me where I am today.
So keep going down the line. So what happens after that?
After that, my career really was on fire. There were several Michelin star chefs literally trying to pursue me. I don't know how they even find out about me. Yeah, Hamburg. But my reputation was good.
I think it was the enthusiasm and your dedication which led to being good.
And our tastings in Hamburg were really, really different. You invite 10 sommeliers to a Michelin star restaurant or something, and then they taste. And some of those chefs were there when other older men were putting me on the spot, trying to tell me that I might not know all the specific regions of Burgundy. But I was always ready because I knew that would be happening when you're 22 and trying to pursue that. And they liked how I was ready. I was ready to
So how long do you
support
spend
myself.
in Hamburg?
I worked between like a couple beautiful hotels and managing several outlets, including a casino at once.
Right.
It was so fun.
Cool.
And then Michelin star restaurant. And eventually with 25, 26, I was really like interested to like just see America once, to be very honest. I had a good life in Hamburg.
After about 4 years
Yeah.
of really getting your chops down,
Yeah.
the U.S. is where you wanted to go. Do you connect in advance or you come here and look around?
No, it's not that easy. But
Okay.
so I knew this master sommelier. He was also in Hamburg, and he was like asking me, "What's next?" I'm like, "Well, I kind of just want to see it for a few months." And I wanted to be in Vegas. I wanted to sell $10,000 bottles of wine. I was like,
Okay.
"Yeah," like
That's so opposite
was-
of what you do now, though.
I know,
Right.
but I was like, let's have some fun for a few months in the US and then go back to the life that was actually pretty good.
All right. So where do you land in the U.S.?
I'm kind of embarrassed about it.
Don't be embarrassed. This
It's-
is the fun part,
It's an island in Michigan. It's called Mackinac Island.
which is gorgeous and a great
Yeah.
summer resort. Maybe not known for wine. Food's not bad there.
Yeah, I worked actually with another master sommelier there, and that's how I got connected from master sommelier to master sommelier.
Was it a well-known and good spot, restaurant, wine list for the area?
It was like we also had multiple outlets, but there was a main restaurant which could seat up to 2,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a cruise ship in that sense, this place. But, we had also a lot of sommeliers in our sections. So it was actually really manageable. We had a huge cellar. It was a really good experience.
Was that a seasonal place?
Yes, absolutely.
Big blow up in the summer. How long do you stay there? One season?
I
or
was there, 1 season, 4 or 5 months. And
you're
then
like, I got to get the hell out
and
of the
then I
north of Michigan. Where'd you go?
I stepped my foot on the last leg of this trip to New York. I got out in Times Square and I felt the energy and I was like, that's it. Here's where I want to be.
And so what happens work-wise?
What happens work-wise is really rough because I did a lot of interviews, but nobody wants to commit.
What year is this now?
Now we are still in 2006 and I'm
Okay.
actually not here until 2008, really. Because like everybody's excited about your resume. You've done a lot, you know something, but like nobody wanted to commit to sign some paperwork, even though I was ready to pay all these things for myself. But like how it is, like we're not really committed here in New York, I feel like.
So something happens. I mean, you don't leave New York. Does a job come up or what happened?
I'm not, I can't, I have to leave New York because I'm
You
not
do?
having any papers.
Is
So
this when you go to Australia?
yes.
Why New York to Australia? A specific job?
There was a specific young man in my life that I met in Michigan
Who headed out to Australia?
who was from Vienna, and he wanted to go there.
Wine or hospitality
He was a
interest?
chef, but I actually organized the whole thing because man.
Yeah, I do. I'm not proud of it. So you go with him to Australia
Yeah, we stayed there a year.
and you worked in wine and restaurants?
Yeah,
And why do you leave?
because there was always the plan,
Okay.
and my plan was always the ulterior motive was
Do you go Australia to New York? Do
absolutely.
you have a job lined up when you come to town or you come to town again without a job?
I come to town, you interview, you don't get anything, and you come back. And I was like, I'm not willing to do this any longer. I'm gonna stay here for a while. He was able to immediately connect to an Austrian restaurant, and I was like, I gotta find the right thing.
So what happens? Where do you wind up?
I wind up at a place in Union Square, which is basically a steakhouse that is no longer in existence.
What was it? I'm trying.
Steak frites.
Oh, yeah.
But it was kind of the newest
That
version.
whole steak free thing has come back in a big way, just so you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
Skirt and the French place. So you do that for how long?
My visa was like 18 months.
Okay.
And then a couple more jobs and a lot of restaurants that are not really around anymore.
Right.
And then eventually I end up doing a lot of different things that have to do with wine, but ending up meeting Frederick from Aska.
Berzelius.
Yes.
And that's an important match for you guys. I mean, you helped Frederick towards a direction and he helped you towards a career. with natural wine. All right. So we'll tie loose ends together, but you're in New York and you're seriously working in wine. All right. So I want to talk to you about a lot of those things. And like I said, I want to talk to you about the store, the subscription, and, we want to make sure people know we're here because you have the fair coming up. So I've been doing the Grape Nation for over 8 years now. Before podcasting was even the thing it was today. There weren't a lot of wine podcasts then. There's a handful, a lot more. One of my early guests was Isabelle Legeron. I'm talking about like one of my first 10 shows. She comes on to promote the first Raw Wine Fair. I think it was in 2016. It seems to me, because of the fair and what was going on in restaurants, that things were really starting to happen with natural wines back then. So think back to around 2016. You can go before, a little after. Tell me what you were doing and what was going on then. Natural wine wasn't a new thing, but it was becoming a thing. What's your,
So around the time with like meeting Frederick and before, people were always interested for me already, like because I was already interested. I was already dabbling to do a wine list, but I always wanted half and half. And I have to like write next to it, sustainable, organic, and I would confuse everybody. And people were like, I just want wine, like, I don't know what this
so
even
those
means.
Two words, sustainable, organic, confuse
biodynamic,
people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so I was really happy to like not have to do this anymore. And after Aska actually closed for 2 years. After my first tenure, which, was...
Were they in Brooklyn?
Yeah, they were next to the White Hotel.
Right.
And so like there were so many chefs in the restaurant constantly like tasting the food and they were so impressed with the pairings and the wine list and that we're really doing it and that we're really going for natural wine. So I actually got hired by a bunch of them and then started like a company that was just that I'm doing consulting on retainer. And that's how I also ended up with Aldea and Cell Rose and even Moby's in East Hampton. We did a lot of natural wine and many others. But I created this that I'm really like in charge of the list, but I'm not on the floor anymore.
Right.
We're a small team, and you really like train. I always said train our little soldiers, And I had like an outlook for the next 3 months, what we can do, because you can't like, and that's why it's a retainer. You can't just like make a natural wine list and let it go.
Right.
You always have to, put something new on. And I also feel like it's very boring to just have the same wine on for 6 months. I don't understand that.
Natural or not. I mean, it's
natural
boring to
or
have
not.
the same menu.
Yeah.
You got to go seasonal or creative.
Exactly.
What I'm curious about too is, so you're doing that and you're looking to your left and right. Are there already restaurants that are doing it? Like, is Wild Air around then? Or are there a couple of prophets of natural, Jorge Riera, Justin, these guys?
Yeah.
I mean, do you sense there's sort of a group of people?
To be honest, I'm always looking at my own plate. So I'm not really like looking what everybody else was doing. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Not so much what they're doing, but that they're doing it. That there's a swell or interest.
I think Contra opened like just around that time that Aska was there.
Right.
For example, yeah.
So there were some people.
In the White Hotel, there was Lee Campbell doing natural wine. So yeah, that's where you're coming from.
Definitely.
Sorry.
So the reality is there wasn't a ton, but there was a handful of people spread out, committed to promoting these wines in restaurants.
And I was the one that was crazy about orange wine, and I put the orange wine everywhere, and I got people
excited about it. As far back as the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about that. Well, no, we'll come back to that. Where do you think we are today? I mean, has natural wines or, thoughtfully made wines, small I don't always like to call them natural. Has the public embraced them? Is there an acceptance there? I mean, I know it's not a huge percentage of sales. Where are we today? Have things progressed? Are we stuck?
I absolutely think that we have progressed. I mean, like it's the new normal. You go to restaurants. I mean, people order more orange wine than rosé. That's what I'm hearing in the
Right.
summer and in the winter and at all the time. I feel like they're maybe not always the right orange wines on
Well,
these
we're going to
lists,
talk about
but,
that. That's why you're here to guide us. So there's been steady growth in interest and consumption.
Absolutely.
Wine consumption has been down. Do you think these type of wines, natural wines and orange wines, defy that a little just because they're so niche and there's...
I'm not sure, but I see it myself. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit down, but it will come back,
Yeah. Do you think, as far as natural wine and even orange wine, we were talking about a bottle out there, that I was telling you I had the same bottle and you couldn't see through the bottle. Are we beyond the inconsistencies in production, people's misconceptions out there? Are we beyond the idea that these wines are a fad, or you still have to fight some of that stuff off?
I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't hear any of that because it's just like at this point, it shouldn't be a trend or a fad or, it's just like everybody should be educated enough at this point that, this is so old. It's 8,000 years old, born in the Republic of Georgia.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing. So I guess when you're in the world of natural wines and, you're the proponent for orange wines, you're not exposed to the rest of the world as much. I mean, do you think mainstream restaurants are doing a good enough job putting natural wines on the list or even orange wines, or let them do what they want? There's plenty of other places to get them.
Right. I'm never trying to convince anybody about this, but if they want to learn about it, then I'm happy to help. But you can't change the world in that sense.
Right.
There's restaurants, that's what they want to do. That's their concept. And,
right.
I'm not here to,
which is the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up wines, orange wine, natural wine dating back 8,000 years. When we think of natural wine, it's ironic that orange wine is so old. I mean, dating back 8,000 years. Yet, with that history, it's still so new to most people, right? I mean, you're still advocating and educating.
Absolutely.
So we may have touched on it, but when did orange wine become a thing? Like when you were on it, possibly before it was a thing, but when do you... Is that a fair question? Does that question frustrate you?
It's frustrated.
No exactitudes. When did you feel good? Like, wow,
I think that there had to be somebody there. And I think I was one of the people that was there, putting them on all the lists, working with Aska, with the pairings, which were really hard. Pairing Scandinavian food, with anything was really hard. Orange wine was kind of always the answer to the most difficult pairing, and I was not overpowering it in any kind of sense. I remember we had this fish broth that was smoked and there was something dehydrated in there. I don't know.
Crazy, right?
It was, and then there was this wine, it was just perfect. And it was so minerally, it would take the salt out a little bit or balance the salt. So to me, I helped also to support this. The growth of orange wine. In my humble opinion, that doesn't sound very humble, but
it's kind of interesting that your circumstance may have even promoted it more. That crazy cuisine and the challenge to find wines. You got to admit, Frederick's cuisine is not, kind of mainstream cuisine.
It's not, but it's very good.
Awesome. But it's challenging in a good way to find the right wines. And
I like a challenge.
But yeah, and maybe you were pressed to really go out of the box. And, once you figured it out, you did become...
Aska was at a level and still is. And even on a higher level, back then they had 1 Michelin star, now they have 2. I was I can't screw this up. These wine pairings, they need to be as good as the food.
Right.
That they cannot overpower. There's respect when you work with a chef. There's, I was really putting a lot of time and we really worked together. He let me taste everything I needed to taste. And so that was really, really important.
So that was the time where you really committed to, became focused on orange wines? I mean, your knowledge and natural wines too.
Yeah. And I also never did a wine list again that was not natural. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'd rather starve.
Well, listen, I'm with you. And, that's sort of, what I follow too. So that was a key point. And like you said, never turning back.
And then every week when I always had like a weekly date, like mainly with a girlfriend. And I would always go to restaurants that had orange wine. And she like actually became like really interested in it as well.
Sure.
And so like I just the orange wine obsession kind of really grew. And then like with my consulting jobs, like there were like cool ones, really cool restaurants that I was able to work with. And it's very different here in the US because like if somebody doesn't know about wine, they don't have an opinion about it necessarily. So
or
like
they
all
do
these
with no information, it's a misguided opinion.
But I was just in Austria and there was a lot of I was at a fair and like people like, oh, this is cloudy. I don't drink that. No, you don't want to taste it. And I was with Schmelzer and I was just like so sad that some people were like, no, I already have an opinion. But these servers and bartenders, I would like pull the stuff out. I would be like, hey, let's taste this. They loved already the color. They had absolutely no idea what this is, but they embraced it. And they really became like the help that I needed to support with orange wine. At Cell Rose, we had 4 orange wines by the glass. We had a Piquette by the glass. We had a sparkling. We had something lighter. We had something in the Magnum, something rich, something from Georgia. And this really became a thing.
So when you look back then and you look now, the things that drove interest in the wines, and tell me if you agree on this because you kind of broached on it. Somms that were committed to the wines pushed them on their clientele. Restaurants that were committed either to their somms or the wines served them to their. And there's always been a handful of retailers that would go out of the box then, because you're totally, an orange wine. Now, were those the biggest proponents of promoting wines? That group?
Probably.
Where do you think most of it happened? Was it in restaurants or because were there a lot of retail? It
definitely happened in restaurants.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, we have raw wine fair. We have other fairs.
Where, like I said, almost 8-9 years ago, the trade got to taste tables full of, other wines, which was enlightening. Yeah. So I know you've done this a million times, and it's a good time in the middle. And I really want you to be brief. And if anyone could, be succinct, explain to my listeners how orange wine is made. Let's start. Orange wine's not made with oranges. So tell me how it's made.
So it's made from white grapes. There are about 20,000 grape varieties that are white. It's very important when it comes to orange wine. All these have different genetics. They have different colors, and they have different thickness of skins, phenolics, different genetics. They're built differently. And so in a short way to explain that, it's literally the wines or the grapes are being crushed, and they are kept together with the seeds and the skins and the juice.
So when the grapes, I want to visualize it. When the grapes are picked, they're put in a vat or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're kind of crushed, however.
Mm-hmm. Usually foot trodden.
Foot trodden in Europe, for sure. The seeds stay in and the skins stay in.
Sometimes the stems too.
Stems,
Depends.
Right. And when you're making a Chardonnay, you take all of that out. How quickly?
So the way it works with white wine, it's usually this large press. It's called a pneumatic press.
Right. It's okay.
So all the wine goes in there, and there is a balloon that basically extends. And this balloon has all these little holes in there, and it presses in seconds the skins to the side.
Right. And the skins basically are pulled out.
It's not
pulled out. The juice
it's completely separated. In
right.
seconds.
And the skins never really have contact
You
with
never
the juice.
touch.
So that's our segue into orange wine. So now you know Chardonnay, it's the grapes are pressed. The grapes are separate. The juice, comes out clear. Now with orange wine, you press the grapes and take it from there.
Well, you're stomping them,
Right.
and you leave them together with the juice. And,
Seeds, some guys stems.
you're not pressing them yet,
Right.
and it could be like one day, it could be an entire year that the juice and the skins and everything is together.
So that maybe I'm learning something here too. Is the juice then poured off without the skins, and that's the last time?
It's just being pressed.
It's just being pressed. How is it fermented? With the skins, no skins?
No skins. Eventually, you
Okay.
have to pull the skins
So
off.
that
You have to separate them.
that foot pressing on the skins and seeds is where all the color and texture and flavor comes from. Got it. And like you said, it could be a day. It depends on the maker. They could go
It depends really on the grape variety.
right.
Because
That dictates what the winemaker
right.
will do.
Sometimes when you have 3 days, it can be super tannic, and sometimes if you do it for a whole year, it's actually really smooth. It's just like it really depends on the grape variety. And as a winemaker, you don't need to know 20,000 grape varieties. You need to know the ones that are growing in your backyard.
Right. Right. Which is where they grow best. All right. Let's stay with the education part and a brief history of orange wine. We talked about how old it is, 8,000 years. That 8,000 years ago points to a certain part of the world and region. Fair to say?
Yes.
Where?
The Republic of Georgia.
So Georgia is the birthplace of orange wine.
Yes.
They were the first to do it. So let's quickly talk about a few things. What were the grapes that were indigenous to that area then? Do we know?
So Georgia is still only really working with indigenous varieties. I mean, I hear a couple of larger commercial producers or cooperatives working with some Chardonnay and stuff.
Yeah.
But, we have Katzatelli, we have Mitzvana, we have Kisi, Titska. There are many, many.
Then and still now.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, what about, they were foot stomping then, right? I mean, they had no equipment.
They had nothing.
The process has carried on.
That's how it actually happened, because
Right.
they were foot stomping the grapes, and then so how are we going to remove the skins? It's
so
impossible.
They kind of stumbled on
And
it.
there's over 30% inside the skins of juice. So
Right.
you're wasting alcohol.
That's interesting. Now, what about when the juice was stomped and they held it for however long? They would put it in what kind of vessels? In those days in Georgia, was it just amphora, or they were using different types of?
So they don't like that when we say amphora. It's a quevri.
Kveri?
There's a
Veri.
exactly.
A kvevi, which is like, the last time I'll say it, an amphora clay vessel.
It has to do with sizing.
But back then, was it only that, or they used mostly that and other things? Or just
I would say mostly that and maybe some other things.
Okay.
I mean, they were also making wine at home. So but yeah.
and to this day, we discussed a little, the process is still followed as if it was then. Foot stomping, indigenous grapes, really no intervention, storage in kvevi.
Yeah,
Kvevi.
query buried in the ground because temperature, colder,
Steadiness, right, cooler and all of that.
slower fermentation.
And that's the way it's still made today. So historically,
Yeah.
now we know that certain orange wines are not made to all of those steps.
Well, there's orange wines honestly made in many, many different vessels
Right.
at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And like any winemaker who wants to experiment, maybe he thinks he'll get a better, different wine from natural, older wood or whatever. Let them do what
Absolutely.
they want. Yeah. All right. So that's a little of how it's made and a little history. Believe me, it's a lot richer and deeper, but at least, we're getting people. a little information about it. So the wines tend to be very prolific to this day in a handful of countries that they're known in many countries.
Yes.
All right. What are they? I mean, what have been the countries that have been, the best producers of orange wine on a consistent basis?
Well, I think there's a lot happening right now all over the world.
As much as ever.
As much as ever.
You seem a little excited.
And after Georgia, I really followed to Italy. Italy has the most density of orange wines. Actually, we had a long talk yesterday with Simon Wolf. He's become my friend a few months ago, and
good one.
And that was interesting. But we have orange wine in Japan. We have wine that we're tasting right now in Czechia.
Right.
Even in Poland, were a couple of them. But Austria is producing excellent orange wine.
Right.
Slovenia, even Germany, my country.
Yeah.
Where it's it's in many countries, and the US is doing a really good job too.
Yeah. Upstate New York and out in California and in other places. So your initial draw to Georgia was based on history, and then Italy produces, as much or the next amount. So you got drawn to Italy, and then certainly France is doing a bunch. And
it's really all over the world now.
Yeah. Tell me places right now. I think you may have mentioned it. I don't think people look to Japan as, an orange world thing, but outside of Eastern Europe or Europe, like Austria and Italy and all of that, is the U.S. making good natural wine?
Absolutely.
Are there other countries, that are not typical? U.S., you mentioned Japan. Where else can you think of?
Czechia.
Okay.
I said Poland. Greece is making orange wine. Really good stuff now.
It makes sense that Greece could make great orange wines, right?
Yeah.
So before we take a break, because we're going to take a break, and I want to talk to you about the store, the wine club, and, spend some good time on the fair and how you do that. Tell me some of the characteristics of orange wine in a general sense. I'll get you kick-started. I mean, I think there's texture to these wines almost
Absolutely.
always. To me, they're very layered. They're nuanced. You're the trained palate. What else do you get out of orange wines?
So first, I really have to say, when you look at white wine and orange wine as a category, and they're actually in the same category because there is no orange wine category yet, then you see how many facets actually in the small niche of orange wine actually has. We have lighter bodied, medium bodied, fuller bodied. We have sparkling made in different kinds of ways. We have wines that are like floral, minerally, salty, umami, tropical, you name it. There's just so much to explore.
But to that point, do you see orange wines having a wider range of all of what you said than most other wines?
Absolutely.
Okay,
that is
so
exactly my point.
One of the characteristics of orange wine is the depth and width of its diversity.
The layers.
Compared to, I mean, you gave me great adjectives, as far as the range of what they could be, from light to medium, and we'll talk about this a little more too when we taste the wines. And you mentioned it earlier. There's food friendly is a key aspect of these wines. Again,
That's
why do they work so well? Because of that range and diversity?
I would say so. The texture of the wines. I mean, there's just so much, and we always, as you can see here in the store, we have a lot of pairings on it, and there's just it's endless. When you look at, if you want an example, sparkling, you can have a really lighter, minerally sparkling orange wine with sushi. It's the perfect pairing, but you have something a little bit fuller that could be with fried chicken.
Right.
Really delicious. Or, something in the middle with smoked salmon. and you have like something on the lighter side that maybe is a little bit like, tropical, then you could do like something like a scallop crudo dish that could be just perfect. There's many.
You're right.
Asian dishes.
When I think of being challenged with Chardonnay, you're looking at Chardonnays that are steely, maybe from stainless steel tanks, oaky, too oaky, buttery. Some of them are tropical, but that's about it. I mean, that limits Chardonnay. Everything you said about orange wine, there's so many more presentations. You agree?
Absolutely.
All right. So great food-friendly wine, and we'll talk about that a little more. Doreen's going to answer the wine list, and we're going to see what pairs with the wine that she picked for our weekly wine sip. All right, Doreen, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Doreen Winkler. Doreen is the proprietor of Orange Glou Wine Shop on the Lower East Side. There's a Orange Glou subscription club, and we're going to talk about the Orange Glou Wine Fair, which is coming up in a few weeks, which is really why I wanted to sit down with Doreen to get a download on orange wines and hopefully get people out to this. So you're listening to The Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Doreen Winkler. Doreen is the orange wine guru. She has her hands in a lot of things, a store, a wine club, and the fair. All right, so let's talk about, we talked about the wines. We talked about how the hell you got here. The first thing that you kind of dipped your toes in was a subscription wine club dedicated to orange wines. So at some point, you're frustrated that this is not available, or you're driven crazy by friends because they want recommendations, or you're just flat out bored. How does the subscription club come about?
I was doing really well with multiple clients being on retainer with me.
Consulting.
And, I got them all very excited about orange wine, and I wanted to do something that's personal, that's just for me. And I was first actually thinking like somebody should be doing orange wine club. And then I was like, who knows a lot about orange wine? It's kind of like, and then I came like, and then my friends were like always asking me, where can we get this? They would come to the restaurants and support me and have a glass. And they're like, so where can we get this? I was like, I can't buy it for you there at the, restaurant because that's not really legal. And so they were pushing me. Literally a friend of mine was like starting like, let's set up this website. Let's brainstorm a few things. But yeah, I just really wanted to share my love for orange wine and have my own little personal project.
Were retailers, and I know specialized retailers in a limited amount, were they even doing a good job?
So that's exactly what I felt. I didn't know where to send people if they wanted anything that was from any of. There were not a lot of options, and some stores still to this day are completely like orange wine. No, that's just a trend. We are not stocking that.
Right.
And so yeah, there was just not a lot of options. And
so you launched the wine subscription club when?
I launched it actually on Halloween.
Okay. I like that idea.
I think it was Halloween.
So we're coming up to an anniversary.
It was actually it was part of an after party for Raw. And so they were really supportive like for add-on events. And I was like, I want to just launch it. I want to do it. We had 25 wines but a glass and half a glass. I got a really cool space on Christie Street, and at the end, like I wanted to have like some sort of like ticketed fee because I wanted to see how many people are coming. And then we had only 20 tickets sold, and we had about 100 people in line waiting outside to, obviously send some people home. It was rough, but it was really cool to see.
Good response.
Like how many people came out to support me. Please buy your tickets first, because we cannot accommodate anything at that same day. It's rough in any kind of circumstance. But yeah, it was so cool. And the thing is also that I really wanted to be in the New York Times once in my life. And as a professional sommelier working in a Michelin-star restaurant, I was never getting into the tasting group or anything. And I was asking my friend if she could potentially, whom is also my PR, pitch me for the launch of the Orange Glou Club. And
Who did it? Florence Fabricant?
Yes. And she was like, I want exclusive rights. Nobody can hear about this, that you're opening this club, that you're starting this company.
That's a good one.
And yeah, it was.
So that was what year?
2019, 5 years ago.
So look, this is our 5th year anniversary.
Yes.
Congrats. All right. So what's your criteria for selecting these wines? Obviously, they have to be orange. We talked about our deep commitment to organics, biodynamics,
so
natural.
When it comes to club, it's really a curation. It's always different. And I actually source the wines months in advance. And I'm very much in touch with the winemakers because my reps are not telling me about these amazing things that are coming, or that they want to sell them to me.
Better source from the winemaker than the rep.
No, it's I need to know when they're coming in, and then I can make a call and be like, hey, did that arrive? Okay, now you know my tricks. But it's curated. I always want to have for the 3-bottle club a sparkling, something maybe lighter, maybe that's umami, maybe something a little fuller. It has to be from a different country. It has to be something different. We always put some icons in there, and then we put some new discoveries where we feel like this is really, really good. We really want to show that. So
and notations, about all the wines.
Yeah, we have all the
Do you remember your first box? The 3 wines? Let's go. What are they?
It was Matassa Marguerite, of course.
Okay, that's Tom Lube.
Yes, and that's what Florence got. This was the box.
Okay.
Then it was a wine from Czechia, from Porta Bohemica, a Gewürztraminer.
Okay, that's a Czechia Gewürztraminer. That's an interesting one. Go ahead.
It opened the floodgates for me to love Czech wines. And then we had from Nevio Scala a sparkling orange wine.
Okay.
So
these are small production, highly allocated wines.
Yeah.
Obviously you've made a commitment to talk to the winemakers and be, there for them and understand what they're doing. Is it harder now to get some of these wines? I mean, are there wines that you want that you
It's always been hard. What I want is always hard to source. And that's why I need to be on top of it. So your
curation has an eye for certain things, and a lot of those are just either small production or not a lot comes here.
Yes, and allocated, so I can only get a small amount, from the importer.
Have you made your way towards the top of the list because you've been doing it 5 years? You sell the wines. I mean, do they don't worry, Doreen, we'll take care of you? Or?
Sometimes, but there's also politics involved, and so it's not up to the winemaker who exactly gets those wines,
Do you feel like you could be in a position to sort of break a wine into the country by introducing it to subscribers? Maybe one of your subscribers is a Somm and okay, so the wine that we're going to taste is an example of that.
It's self-imported.
So your curation has some influence, and has anyone else launched any orange wine clubs?
Absolutely. Copycats all over.
Okay.
But to be honest, I look at the quality.
They don't know. Doreen, they don't know what they're doing.
I'm sorry. They don't know what they're doing. It's not good enough. I would not put that out there.
All right. So the wine club steadily grows?
It's, it's an up and down.
But I mean, from the beginning, you saw at least an encouraging...
I mean, it was completely wild. It's 2019, we launched in the fall, and then we go into the pandemic, 2020.
Right, the timing. I didn't realize that.
It was entirely subscription-based.
But that's a good thing for the pandemic. Did that work to your benefit?
At first, it didn't. First, immediately, 15 club members were like, I don't know if I have a job. I shouldn't be drinking. And so there was a first, and then a lot of emails can you just launch this curated box, but as a non-commitment?
Right.
And then I started, the Orange Glou curated surprise boxes as a 3, 6, or 12. And they were ordered. And then people obviously came from all the offices saying, like, we can't do an event this year, but we could do an online event with you. And then it would be different because it's orange wine and people would be so excited. And maybe we can send some cheese with it. So like kind of in 2020, it completely exploded.
Because
and with that came a lot of issues.
Because of that weird turn of the pandemic. Yeah.
And with that came a lot of issues because I was shipping with other stores.
Issues. Shipping? What
else?
Else?
Yeah. Everybody that I kind of worked with or several people that I worked with they lost their shipping license because they weren't shipping the right things. And so like, I remember the last time I had 50 cases of wine just delivered to that store. We had a large, amazing company, starts with a P. I don't know if I can actually name drop, like having like this 100 people virtual event. And I'm like, how am I going to get this out? And that's really how the search with the shop started, where I was like,
so good segue. So you, out of necessity, is it fair to say, you start a brick and mortar orange wine only. It's one thing to open up a wine shop, a wine bar, but you start a...
Maybe you see a pattern here. First Orange Wine Club.
Except you're wearing all black. Go ahead.
First Orange Wine Club. First Orange Wine Store. Followed by...
Right.
Orange Wine Fair.
You open the Orange Wine Store to fulfill or necessitate what?
Necessitate I can ship on my own and I don't have any more issues with getting this out. And
that's one of the corner pin ideas of the store, so that you have that ability.
I immediately planted this beautiful tasting room where we're sitting here. I was like, I want my tasting room. I know we will have some events here all the time. And so like I was feeling like I already have the subscription coming in. So that will pay the rent. And then, we're going to have some people buying wine here, and then we're going to have some events.
Right. And that all worked out from the beginning when you did that? The events happened pretty quickly?
Yes.
Okay. And that was what year?
21, I opened the store.
Okay. So, you're going on over 3 years. The idea of using the store to facilitate the club was good, but now you want to fill the store up. Is it an extension of what you're doing in the club, or now here's an opportunity to even showcase more wines? What were you putting on the shelves at the beginning, and, how has that changed to now?
I don't think it has changed. The thing is that we're changing, actually, in that sense. Our concept has not changed. We're putting new wines on the shelf every single week because we really want the best. And if you just get 3 bottles, we get just 3 bottles, and we're so proud to actually carry them.
Right.
So like it's always evolving. There's every week something different. We don't have them in sections of like countries. We really have them in sections of sparkling, lighter bodied, medium bodied, and fuller bodied.
That's the way. But if you looked at country representation, where are most of the wines from? It's pretty split up, right?
I tried to split it up. Right now we have a lot of Austria, I have to say.
Okay,
but also we just had an Austrian event.
You did something with Austria.
And right now
Austria's
we have a
really come to the forefront, with natural wines and, with orange wines and all of that. How many different, I don't even know if you want to answer this question, but how many different wines are in the store? Under 100, right?
Usually between 70 and 100. Really depends on
70 and 100 different wines.
Yes.
Not necessarily 70 and 100 different winemakers, because you could have a few.
I usually pick my absolute favorite from one or, from a winemaker, or maybe 2.
Right.
But yeah, it's the whole thing. They don't do 5 different orange wines usually. I mean, Terpene does, and I have them all.
Right.
But usually it's not really the case.
Well, you have them all because you want to have them all. If you think about it, you mentioned earlier there's 20,000 varietals when we were talking about how it's made and the history and all of that. I would assume in the store is that diversity of varietals, that there's, different grapes throughout all these wines, right? And that's based on region. Certain countries have certain varietals and all of that. So you're going to see a wide range of that.
Yes. It's literally like a candy shop for orange wine lovers.
Right.
It's like
It's like I'm sick of caramels. I want to try Sour Patch, or I want something savory. It's all there in different ways. I mean, and anybody who loves orange wine, to your point, it's like a kid in a candy shop. You're not going to see this kind of. All right. So I know you have a dedicated following. Obviously, people come down, because they know you're the orange wine guy. But I want to give you a scenario, and I want to know how you handle this, okay? So you have a guy or a woman who's walking down the block, right? And maybe they're on their way to a dinner, or they need a gift, and they look up and they go, Orange Glou, what is that? Oh, it's a wine shop. I need to buy wine. They know nothing about orange wine, right? So the guy walks in, and he's looking for like a bottle of Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, right? What do? How do you make them believers? Can you make the sale? Does the guy just walk out and go, okay, you don't have what I want, I'll see it? Does that still happen? Does it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also what kind of oranges are in the wine every day. But
okay. Are they navel or are they blood? Right.
Exactly. Somebody said to me, there must be a lot of orange wine coming from Florida. I'm like, but there's no AVA in Florida. I don't understand. And
they don't know what an APA is either.
AVA, yeah.
AVA, I'm sorry.
Anyways, as I said to you before, I'm not trying to turn somebody around, like, convince somebody. Like, if they want Kendall Jackson, it's
not
rough.
Turn around. Maybe you can help that guy. How do you do it?
Well, we always immediately ask people, have you had orange wine before? We greet them really well. We explain to them what we have, how it's sectioned up, and ask them what they're looking for. So maybe like a flavor profile, something they really like. If they would say Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, I would.
You'd go a little lighter.
I would go a little lighter,
yeah.
But I feel like I could find like a fresh orange wine for them that maybe has some creaminess and, that they might like. But if they are bringing this for friends, it might be a rough, rough sale. But, maybe they're coming that day when we have a tasting on Friday, 6 to 8.
Every Friday, 6 to 8, you're tasting wine? You walk in on a Friday, 6 to 8, there's 2, 3, 4 bottles open, different wines?
Depending on the day.
Okay. That's a way to do it. That's education. I'm really talking about the guy who just kind of...
We have a really good one coming up, actually, on November 1st with Franz Strohmeyer for orange wines.
Is Franz going to be here?
He's here. He's also coming to the fair.
All right. So towards the end of the show, we'll talk about that. So you can make believers out of wine people. Your batting average is not going to be 100%, but if you can get a few people converted, good for you, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel you do that?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. All right. Finally, let's talk about what's important today. The store is wonderful. You just talked about a great tasting coming up. The wine club is unique in the sense that, you have an expert curating great wines and relationships with great winemakers. One of the ways to really pull all this together and get it out to the people is to do a wine fair. You've been doing a wine fair, and you have one coming up November 3rd. And what day is that? That's a Sunday. And we'll talk about it again, but give me the location. It's in Manhattan.
It's in Union Square.
Okay, it's central to almost everyone.
Exactly. It's next to Barnes & Nobles. It's a beautiful, light-filled space. Lots of glass. It's 31 East 17th Street. Tickets are available under orangegloufair.com.
Glou being Glou, people.
Yeah.
orangegloufair.com. Tickets are still available.
Yes.
That's why we're talking about it now. We'll get it sold out. All right. So I think that you should be confident that this is one of the more important and specialized fairs, right?
I am.
I mean, there's great salons and fairs in France, natural and all of that. But when you think about this, I mean, this is kind of a happening thing, right? So let's go back to the first fair. How did the fair thing start? Obviously you're antsy, you're an orange wine, profit, you got to do more.
I mean, I just really felt there has to be even more education. I have to do even more what I'm already doing. Besides the club, besides the store, there has to be more education happening. And so I was like, I was like, definitely, should I do this year or next year? And I'm like, just do it, And then there were a lot of winemakers already in town. And that was for also the first launch of Caractère. We launched here in the same year. And I was like, there were some others actually in town as well. And I was like, this could actually work. They could all like come to me.
What was their initial response? Like, cool, let's do it? Or coaxing?
The response was so good. Like,
from the winemakers?
Yeah. They immediately were like, absolutely, we'd love that. And that it was small and curated and that, we didn't have hundreds of winemakers.
But when you look at Caractère or any even raw wine or whatever, the amount of orange wine within those fairs is a fraction, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find the makers that make orange wine or some orange wine.
Well, I know them all.
Do it. You knew them well then from consulting restaurant and all that. So that first fair launches when and where?
So it was also in November in 2022. And we actually hosted it here in a really beautiful gallery and speakeasy on Christie Street. And really just emailing the winemakers, there was an immediate response. Sometimes you have to DM them too because winemakers and emails. But the response was really great. And then the public responded really well too. And then Florence came through in the New York Times and was like, a new wine fair?
Did that
do it.
mention really create a big awareness and bump?
I think that overall, my PR did a very good job as well. And the interest is it's not only one, obviously outlet coming through. It's I think we had 30 something articles because everyone wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And it was incredible.
It was a thing and it looked like
it happened
at that point you were real and committed and nobody had done this before.
And we sold out about a day before. And I didn't really want to have any more people. And then I literally got 50 emails, 50 DMs. Like, what the hell? Why we cannot not buy the tickets in the morning? And I was like, because
you and I talked about that offline, how you're very sensitive to not running an event that is so crowded and inaccessible.
Yes.
So you important. Do that. That was at a gallery in New York.
Yeah, so it's a gallery and a speakeasy. So we were able to.
And then you did LA?
And then I did last year at the White Hotel fair in Brooklyn. That was really cool. And then earlier this year, I was very focused on California vs.
The market
Georgia.
Or the wines?
I was hosting a wine fair that was only Californian orange wines and Georgian wines.
And for the market. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
And now we're having the new fair coming up.
So the new fair, like we said, is November 3rd. Tickets are still available. If I walk in there, what am I going to see? I'm going to see how many different producers?
So many. You're going to taste around 100 orange wines. They're all
crazy.
They're hand selected.
100.
They're hand invited. So
this is a very curated.
Yes.
I hate to use the word exclusive, but I've had the good fortune to go to a lot. I was at the first raw wine. I was just a Caractère. All the people that are important in this scene are going to be here, which is pretty cool.
And you really you get a pamphlet. You know exactly where I'm sending you. I'm sending you first to table one. I know where I'm finishing you up with the richer wines from Slovenia. We're starting in Austria. We're going to Italy. And then we're finishing up in Slovenia.
There's a focus this year in the fair. Slovenia, Italy.
And Austria.
Probably Austria is the biggest, right? There's more winemakers, the commitment to organics and biodynamics. Overall. No? Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. I just got a sense that was, so that's good. Slovenia?
Slovenia is really the old country. They were also one of the first making orange wine. So I can't say that Italy was the first after Georgia making it. And Austria is just on fire right now with the quality.
Right. It's funny. People think of Italy as, they think of the Piedmont, Tuscany, other areas. The white wine regions of Italy are very interesting, and in a certain, the Radicon and who is it, Gravner, they're all, these are some of the old school great winemakers. So the fair gives you an opportunity to taste all these different wines. You don't have to be focused just on orange wine. I mean, it's an opportunity to taste wine, period, but taste, kind of a curated selection of these wines. And, Doreen, I think you've done a good job about,
Thank you.
Getting all these people in. For the winemakers that are at the fair, you pretty much follow the same criteria that you do for the club and the store, right?
Yeah, it has to be natural. There's no additives, and as ideally no sulfur added or a very
Right.
small amount.
But sulfur's a
under
way of
20.
life for some people and all.
Exactly.
I'm guessing you have a lot of no sulfur wines there, probably, right?
It's like, when you look at it like years ago, it was not possible. It seemed like every time I was opening a non-sulfur wine was turning brown immediately.
Right. Well, that's why I asked you earlier, the misconceptions, the inconsistencies, they've kind of fixed that, or they understand it better and how to handle it.
Yeah.
Which the big thing with the, natural wines was the inconsistency, the look of the wine, not filtered, the funkiness.
I mean, it's insane. Like when I was just in Austria, we had wines open for 20 days and I tasted them like, Verlich was telling me this is open for 20 days. And it was still like, it was exposed to oxygen.
Right.
But these wines are always exposed to oxygen. Right. These natural wines. So they were actually, but like, when you really have quality wine, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I was going to ask you, in closing, what changes have you seen in the past 10 years since you've been slinging orange wines? I think you answered the question. One of the first things is the quality and the consistency and understanding what's going on has really come to a point where the wines are consistent and wonderful. Can you think of anything else? The diversity of places making it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot to
There's so much happening every single year. It's just really, I feel like I do have a really exciting job here to learn about the new countries and the new varieties.
Well, you're the guy. I mean, what's next for you? Building an orange skyscraper or something? I mean, what's left to do?
I don't know. Orange Glou bar?
All right, I'm into that. All right, that's Doreen Winkler, Orange Glou Fair. We're going to give you specifics again. Doreen, a couple things before we leave. I want you to answer our Grape Nation wine list, and then we're going to talk about, for our weekly wine sip, the wines, okay? We'll spend ample time with it. Here's the wine list. I ask all my guests 5 questions, same 5 questions, okay? Be spontaneous. Don't dwell on these questions. Don't be nervous. You seem to be a little fidgety. All right. So the first question is, what are you drinking now? And the context is really, what's in your fridge at home? What are you trying? Do you ever go beyond orange wines? Does the seasonality move you from one thing to another? What are you drinking now?
I try not to drink so much because I'm working every day.
Okay, but when you do.
When I do, it's like, I really need to be stimulated. Like I always have something else that I want to try, or maybe it's a new sample, or it's something.
I'm like that with music. I need to always be listening to music, and I need to be stimulated. I need to know what's going on.
I cannot do the same task even every day. So
what fits in? Give me a wine, a category or two.
I've been really interested in Piquette, for example.
Okay.
Like I feel like low alcohol. It's like a thing.
So tell people quickly what Piquette is. It's wine, but not wine.
Yeah, I mean, I had fights about it, but to me, it's dehydrated skins. So it's
After
you're
they're
using
pressed.
the grapes exactly. And then you add some water, some indigenous yeast, and then it basically ferments again, or re-ferments, and it's like a lighter sparkling beverage that is like about 5%. So I love drinking that. People have said it's dead. I don't think so, and I really encourage
my friend Todd
producers
at
to
Wild
make
Dark
it.
Farm's been making Piquette longer than anybody.
Love.
Is there enough other stuff around? I think my friend Patrick Capiello tried it once out west. Are there a handful of Piquettes to taste?
Yeah.
They're out there?
There's,
All right, so you're drinking piquettes. Anything else? Give me one more thing.
I'm also drinking, I feel like I'm drinking a lot of minerally orange wines right now.
Does that indicate a certain
that,
region or certain grape?
It can be made in different countries. I feel like there's a lot of Germans I'm tasting right now that are just like new producers that are out there that I've been really excited about. There was one that really tasted like a key lime pie.
Ooh.
I mean, I was so
Tell me
impressed.
who. Can you remember?
Zwei Naturkinder.
Okay.
It's called Wilde Meute, which
All right,
means
you're
like
gonna
a
have to
wild
write
bunch.
that down for me before I leave because I don't know what the hell you're saying, but I think people are going to be very interested about that. All right, I didn't mention I post your answers. All right, this is a great question for you and for the wines. It's the goofiest on the list. What is your favorite wine and food pairing? Not what's the best. What do you think? What do you eat? Probably not often. What's Doreen Winkler's favorite wine and food pairing? Obviously, you don't eat it a lot, but when you do, it's like, oh, wow. Oh,
well, I absolutely love Thanksgiving because it's my bonus holiday.
Okay, so you love the turkey and the trimmings and the stuff. All right, so people know what's served on a Thanksgiving table. What are the pairing wines for that?
So the one we actually have in front of us is a beautiful wine for Thanksgiving.
All right, so say what it is now, and we'll keep saying it again.
It's the Donatus Palava from Czechia. But
okay,
last
so
year,
Donatus, Donatus. Palava is Palava. All right.
Last year I had some Matassa Brutal.
Okay, what is the Matassa Brutal? What's in the Brutal?
There is some Macabeo
blend, right?
It's like a blend, and it's like really, really limited. I was literally able to get a couple bottles, and I stashed one away.
You drank it. All right, that's good. You live in a cool neighborhood. Your store's in a cool neighborhood. I'm not sure how busy you get sometimes or how you get out. But tell me your favorite wine restaurants and or bars. And I'm not saying to rank them or this is your favorite, but just give me a few examples of places that do it well and that fulfill your criteria, which would obviously be natural, organics, definitely have oranges on the list. It could be bars only, it could be restaurants. Who does a good job with that?
Well, there's so many.
Give me a couple.
I love hanging out at Skin Contact and Sometime in this neighborhood. It's just not only the warmth that it's like that's also really important, the hospitality factor of it. But
so the vibe is good. Plus, Skin Contact, you're going to have the selection, and they're knowledgeable.
Yeah, well, they're not just orange wine.
No, I know,
but they're knowledgeable. It's easy place to be. When I want to eat a little bit more, then I go to Sometime. They have a wonderful chef, Angie, and so they support me and I support them.
Right.
So I must say, it's so rough running a business, but my neighbors and supporters are absolutely amazing. You can go to 10 Bells right now. There is a poster of the Orange Glou Fair. Next to it, the sushi restaurant hung the poster up. Dudley's hung the poster up. Sometime, Skin Contact. I can't even actually imagine that they did that.
That's a good community.
Vinvero,
that's a good community. Those are good places.
Grand Street Pizza. I'm walking by through this neighborhood and I'm seeing all these posters still up. It's really, the community is everything.
I don't want to knock you for mentioning only downtown places, but that's okay. It's fine. All right. Fourth question, favorite all-time wine. The question used to be, Doreen, what is the rarest, most expensive wine you ever drank? I don't care about that anymore. What is the wine in Doreen's life that was important, that changed the way you thought about wine, that your thinking changed? It just opened your mind up. Is there a wine at a time and a place or two that you can recall that's important to you?
I think that I don't like saying what's my favorite, but
I'm not asking you. What's a wine that influenced?
Changed things.
Yeah,
so many.
You can't go back to the beginning, or you can't go back to one that was listen, this isn't the only one, but this one, had some sway on me. If you can't, you can't.
I felt when I looked at Muster and Strohmeyer, what they make with Sauvignon Blanc, which is in a way so boring when I have a regular Sauvignon Blanc white in front of me. And then it actually touched me.
That's a good answer.
To drink the air.
That's a good. There's a lot of elements to that.
Yeah.
Terrific makers.
And then
taking a varietal that's blah, opening your eyes to it.
Tasting my first Matassa. I mean, wow. And then tasting with Sasa Radikon. I was just like, what is this? This all has so much energy, and it's all like, look at these 3 wines, how different they are.
So I got to moderate a panel with Radikon at Raw Wine. We tasted through 10 wines. I mean, Stephanie Sheps was in the, all these people were, there to be, it was amazing. I've never tasted through wines like that. All right, good answers. Last question. You should handle this very well because you are a retailer, you are a club person, and you recommend to me the best wines around 15, 20, 22 bucks. I don't know. I always ask people recommend a red and a white. I want you to recommend to me 2 killer wines in that price range from the store or to your recollection.
The store starts at $20. So
all right.
There's that.
So what's my best lower end wines?
There is this beautiful wine from Cantina Mariana. It's called Sikele.
Spell Mariana.
Mariana.
Mariana. M-A-R?
I.
Liania. Mariana. Liana.
Yeah.
Okay. Italian?
Sikele, Gricanico, Sicily. Around $20.
Great value.
Minerally, has only a couple days of skin contact, but it has the color, it has the texture, it has some really nice honeysuckle notes.
Remind me to take, you have it here now?
It just sold out again.
Okay. You're going to have to write a few things down for me. All right, give me one other one.
Right now, like literally, I just brought it in. It just arrived. It was the Heinrich Naked Orange. It's 25, I believe, on the shelf. And like, I was literally looking like, where are the other cases that I bought from him? Because it was 4 cases and we really just got it in and it sold so fast.
Okay.
And it's like
Heinrich Naked Orange.
Yeah. Heinrich.
$25.
Yeah.
What describe
so it's like a blend out of 7 grape varieties, indigenous. And I would say this like has a little bit more body, a little bit more on the apricot stone fruit side.
I like that.
A little bit of like almost like sage, but fresh sage in the back. And
so savory.
It's juicy.
Exotic.
It's like, it's unpretentious.
Unpretentious. So that's a good one. That's a good, I wouldn't say entry level, but if you're going to come in and buy a bottle of orange wine, you're probably going to like that out of the chute, right?
Yeah. I mean, our average really, since we like really focused, is like $30, $35 the bottle.
That's the nice thing about these wines. All right. As I mentioned, we're going to post your answers because people are always curious and you are an expert at what you're recommending. We end the show with a segment called the Weekly Wine Sip. Every week we taste a different wine on air for our Weekly Wine Sip. This week we're going to taste the Donatus. Doreen, can you tell me more about this wine?
Yes. So Donatus is a really small family winery.
Where?
They are near Brno, in Czechia.
Which is like the old Czechoslovakian Republic? Czechia?
Yes.
Okay, it's now Czechia.
Yes. They go now by Czechia. On the label, it still says Czech Republic.
Czech Republic.
There is a grape variety that I really fell in love with that's called Palava. That's indigenous over there. And this wine is an amphora for about 10 months on the skins and then pressed. And
can I correct you on something? We don't call it amphora. We call it Kaveri.
But it's an amphora. There's a difference between amphora and query.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know what I'm doing.
I'm challenging you. I should like walk out now. Go ahead.
And yeah, it just has, as you can like just go into the taste. So it's
so
natural.
we're gonna do the Grape Nation evaluation.
Yeah, it has no.
First, we're gonna start with the color.
Yes.
This is a very colorful wine.
Yes.
This is kind of almost amber pinkish, right? It's orangey amber with a tint of pink. Okay, so that's the color. You, the expert, put it under your nose and tell me what the nose descriptors are.
The nose, I smell herbs.
Herbs? Savory herbs?
Savory herbs. Almost a little salty.
Saltiness for sure.
Smells so good.
What else? I think the palate's stronger than the nose.
Absolutely. It mostly is with natural wine.
What else do you get on the nose?
Maybe a little bit of citrus.
Yeah, a little.
Lemon zest situation.
Yeah. All right. So let's go mouthfeel. Let's throw it over the tonsils and see what it feels like. I would say it's a medium. It's not a thin wine. It's not a
super layered.
wine. It's layered. It's got a really nice mouthfeel. Now, let's talk about the palate. The palate replicates some of the nose descriptors, but there's a lot more going on in the palate. What is that lot more going on? Tell me what.
So I'm tasting a little bit like kind of like dried mango. Then I'm tasting tea notes. I also taste some sort of an herb in it, which is more on the like dry side. So
the
it's not
finish
a fresh.
Has that tea herbal.
There is a lot of citrus going on.
There's a lot more going on than what you're saying. It's very big on the palate as far as
huge
flavors. It's crazy. Let's talk about the perfect food pairings for this.
So that could be a Thanksgiving wine.
Okay.
For
This
example.
falls under that category. It would work with turkey and stuffing and vegetables
Or
and
some-
gravy.
Yes, or some roasted duck breast.
Okay, duck
We're in that
breast.
season.
Okay. What else?
Pork tenderloin.
Good one. All right, we'll leave it at that. So this is the Donatus Palava that we're drinking, the 2022. This ticks off retail for about how much?
45.
45. So this is really a really nice, good bottle. I mean, if you really want to show a little price and really the interesting.
And it's exclusive for Orange Glou. I really I really want this wine here, and I don't really. So with an importer, I imported it just for us, and it's a lot of money that you pay up front, and it takes months that you actually get it, and it takes months.
So that's what you're all about: finding this wine and going through all the effort.
I'm just really passionate about it,
and charging a reasonable price, not because of scarcity, not gouging people or whatever.
Right.
All right, so I'm also going to post that wine too. Doreen, we have to wrap up because both of us have to get the hell out of here. But let me do a quick wrap up, and I need some further information from you. So if you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Subscribe to the Grape Nation podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review if you like the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at SBenRuby and on Twitter X at BenRuby. But you can reach us on both with the hashtag The Grape Nation. We're on Facebook at The Grape Nation. As I mentioned, we'll post Doreen's wine list, which were the 5 questions and some great recos, and the weekly wine sip, the Donatus, which perfect timing to try to find for Thanksgiving, right? On our social media sites, I'll post that. All right, Doreen, let's download people with some Let's download people with some info. Where can we find more about the Orange Glou Fair?
On orangegloufair.com.
Glou.
Orangegloufair.com.
Remember, I told you to correct me. You did. Orangegloufair.com.
Yes.
Coming up in less than a couple of weeks or a little over, whatever.
Scary, yes.
Yeah, scary for you. Tickets still available?
Yes, we have 2 sessions. We have an 11 a.m. session to 2:30, and then we have a 3 p.m. session to 6 p.m.
And I have a feeling if you wait till very late, one of those sessions or maybe both may sell out. So
space is limited.
I would recommend people to do that now.
Thank you.
If we want to do the subscription,
yes,
where do I go for that? It's like, hey, I'll try this.
We have also a website. So it's really a separated business. We have orangeglou.com where you can find our wine club.
So Orange Glou, I've been on the site a lot. It'll show the store, the club, info on the fair. Plus the fair has its own site too, right?
Yes.
Best place for the fair is the fair site for tickets and all.
And if I may add something,
You may add something.
we are doing our 5-year anniversary event for the Orange Glou Club.
And what does that entail?
So it's November 14th. It's December 14th. Sorry.
No.
And it entails.
December 14th.
Yes, it
What
is
happens?
online. It's a virtual event where we invite the 20 top producers that were, from the wines that were most loved, because we always get a lot of feedback from our wine club members. It's for wine club members and for non-wine club members. And I'm co-hosting this event with Simon Wolf.
Now, who was Simon? Tell me a little more about Simon.
He is the author of this book called Emperor Revolution.
There you go. He's very well known.
And so,
very prolific.
You really get to taste different kind of wines with us.
That's an awesome event.
And there's going to be a book from Simon inside the box. So it's for wine club members and for non-wine club members. I will open it up to others.
All right. Lastly, social media. The fair has its own, like Instagram site.
Orange Glou Fair.
Orange Glou Fair. Store or general Orange Glou?
Yeah, it's orange
_.
Glou.
Okay. Do you post personally?
Yeah.
Under what? Doreen?
Well, I have 3 Instagrams, I guess, that I'm running. Orange Glou Fair, Orange Glou, and then Doreen Winkler.
Okay. Doreen Winkler.
Mm-hmm.
No dots, underscores, just Doreen Winkler.
It's Doreen M. Winkler.
Doreen M. Winkler. All right. So let me just say something about a couple other friends. La Fête du Champagne is this weekend in New York, and the festival season continues with La Table, November 19th through the 23rd, celebrating the wines of the Rhone Valley. For more info on that, go to www.latablenyc.com. And once again, Doreen's Orange Glou Fair is this coming November 3rd in New York City in Union Square. Go to orangegloufair.com. Are there lists of producers there yet or not yet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all on the site.
So it's all there. I want to thank our guest, Doreen Winkler, the Orange Wine Guru. I want to thank our engineer, Armin, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to HRN. We want to make your experience as a listener even better, and to help us do that, we'd love your input on our audience survey. It'll only take a few minutes, and by completing it, you can enter to win a $250 gift card from Goldbelly. Visit heritageradionetwork.org/survey to take the survey and to help us keep growing and improving. That's heritageradionetwork.org/survey. Thanks for your support.